Hello. Welcome to my dressing room. You usually don't get this privilege until after the evening is over. But since you're here, let me give you a little tease as to what you can expect tonight. We have prepared a dramatic potpourri to stimulate your appetite. A smorgasbord of theatrical scenes, seasoned into a delectable array of one-on-one conversations with some of my favorite people. You, the audience. To help me through this evening, I have my very capable dresser and sometimes confidant, Stephen. Are you there, my dear? He also recommends and selects some of my material. He's very shy, doesn't say very much, but he doesn't miss a trick. So be very careful with your remarks because he passes through the theatre during the intermission and reports back to me your every comment. Now, go, go, go. Sit back in your seats and let's begin this evening with one of my favorite British playwrights, the brilliant Tom Stoppard, and my version of the opening scene from his play, The Real Thing, in which a husband who is influential and financially secure is awaiting the return of his wife, who has been away for the weekend on business. So she claims. Don't slam the door. Hello, lover. Oh, it's you. I thought it was my lover. Where is it you've been? Ah, yes. Switzerland, of course. You look well. It's done you good. Or something has. How was Basel? Basel. How was Basel? Or do you say Basel? I say Basel and you say Basel. Let's call the whole thing off. Fancy a drink? Another drink? How is old Basil then? Keeping fit? Am I sloshed? Tiny bit, certainly. Oh, so you didn't go to Basel? No. Where did you go then? Ah, Geneva. How's old Geneva then? Frank doing well? Frank. Swiss Frank. Is he doing well? Am I all right? Absolutely. How's the lake, by the way? What lake? Lake Geneva, of course. You haven't been to Loch Ness, have you? Lake Geneva. 'Tis at Geneva, isn't it? It must be. They wouldn't call it Lake Geneva if it was at Basel or Basel. They'd call it Lake Basel or Lake Basel, wouldn't they? You know the Swiss, utterly reliable. And they've done it all without going digital. That's why I admire them so much. They know that's all a snare and delusion. I remember digitals when they first came out. You had to give your wrist a vigorous shake, like bringing down a thermometer, and the only place you could buy them was Tokyo. But still it looked all over for the 15-jewel movement. People ran through the marketplace shouting, "The cog is dead!" But still the Swiss didn't panic. They even made a few digitals themselves as a feint to draw the Japanese even further into the mire, while they just kept on with numbering the bank accounts. Now you see how the Japs are desperately trying to put hands on their digital watches. It's yodeling in the dark. They can yodel till the cows come home. The days of the digital are numbered. The metaphor is built into them like a self-destruct mechanism. Mark my words. I was right about the skateboard. I was right about nouvelle cuisine. I'll be proved right about the digital watch. Digitals have got no class, you see. It's all science and technology. Makes a nonsense of a decent pair of cufflinks, as the Swiss were the first to understand. Good sail. Good sail. Was the sail good? The sail in Geneva. How was it? Did it go well in Geneva, the sail? What's the matter? I'm taking an interest in your work. I thought you liked my taking an interest in your work. Yes, I'm sure you do. I distinctly remember how cross you got when I told someone, my wife works for Sotheby's, or Christie's, I forget which. You misjudged me as it happens. You thought I was being smart at your expense. In fact, I actually had forgotten. How is old Christie, by the way? There I go again. How's old Southers, by the way? Happy with the result of the Geneva sale, I trust? All right. Just all right. That's the bloody Swiss for you. Too conservative, you see. The Japs could teach them a thing or two. They'd have a whaling fleet on Lake Geneva by now. How was the skiing, by the way? Plenty of snow. What have you done? What's the matter? You forgot your passport. You went to Switzerland without your passport. I found it in your desk drawer. What was I looking for? Your passport. It was about the last place I looked. Of course, didn't know it was going to be your passport, if you see what I mean. Yes, I go through your things when you're away. I liked it when I found nothing. You should have just put it in your handbag, then we'd still be an ideal couple, so to speak. Then I couldn't have checked to see if it had been stamped. Like I see that you never went to Amsterdam when you went to Amsterdam. But I must say, I take my hat off to you. Coming home with those Rembrandt placemats for your mother. It's little touches like that which lift adultery out of the moral arena and make it a matter of style. Rembrandt placemats. I wonder who's got the originals. Some Arab, is it? Dinner's ready. Abdul, put the Rembrandts on the table, would you? No, it's not like when we were burgled. It's not at all the same sense of violation. I'm not a burglar. I'm your husband. Well, I'm sorry if you're upset. I think I've just apologized for finding out that you've deceived me. Yes, I have. How does she do it? Aren't you going to tell me who it is? Your lover? Lover? Which lover? I naturally assumed there'd only be the one. Well, do you see them both together or separately? Tell you what, nod your head if it's separately. Heavens. Have you have an opening free. I'm not doing much myself at the moment. Or is the position already taken? How do they all get away together? Do they work together, like the Marx Brothers? I'm not upsetting you, I hope. Oh, I underestimate you, do I? What do you mean, a string quartet? That sort of thing? What does the fourth one do? Got it. He plays by himself. You can slap me if you like. I won't slap you back. I abhor cliché. It's one of the things that's kept me faithful. Ah. So you are going out again. Well, don't forget your passport. I'm sorry if you think I've given you a hard time, but you've done everything wrong. It's the right thing to say if you can think what it is. Is it anyone I know? You aren't anyone I know. Don't slam the door. Dress in the garb of my next scene. It helps me to keep on track as to what comes next. And this next piece is certainly going to get the Catholics to sit up a bit. Nothing like a little controversy to get the audience's attention. Very clever of you to recommend following that piece on marital infidelity with 3 short segments under the general title of Good and Evil. You know, when you recommended to me that German play called The Representative by Rolf Hochhuth, I was astonished to read about what must be one of the most shameful periods in the entire history of the Roman Catholic Church, when, during the Second World War, the Pope, Pius XII, firmly resisted all attempts to get him to denounce Hitler and his barbaric ideals and practices. You know, there are many who might forcefully deny the subject matter of this play, but the preponderance of the available evidence does indeed support it. Now, let's not keep the audience waiting. Go and find a papal throne and put it in place while I get into the papal character. I have to imagine myself as Pope Pius, holding an audience 2 Jesuit priests. They have brought me graphic evidence of the atrocities being committed by the Nazis, even including the deportation of Jews from right outside the windows of my Vatican palace. I'm being asked to try and save the lives of the persecuted and denounce Hitler.
But His Holiness is much more concerned about the threat of the possible spread of communism. So he answers his critics with cold and clinical political detachment.
The American ambassador comes again and again to plead that we should condemn Hitler's atrocities. But it was not Hitler who bombed San Lorenzo. The Germans brought every book and parchment in safety from Monte Cassino to Castel San Angelo. Then Mr. Roosevelt's bombers came and reduced the citadel to ashes. Certainly this reign of terror against the Jews is disagreeable, but we must not allow it so to incense us that we forget the obligations which the Germans will have to honor in the very near future as protectors of Rome. The hour is dark, but we know for sure that the Vatican will not be touched. Herr Hitler renewed his guarantee of that only a short while ago. It is important to us that Germany must remain viable, capable of maintaining an independent existence, not only for the preservation of the eastern frontier, but also to preserve the balance of power in Europe. On the few occasions which God has caused the rivers of Europe to flow in one direction, in one bed, the stream has swollen to a torrent, sweeping aside and flooding the old order. So under Napoleon, so under Philip II of Spain, so under Hitler. No, each land must have its own stream, its own directions, limits, and frontiers. That is both healthier and easier to control. Alliances, to be sure, but never unity. What was God thinking of when, in the winter of 1939, he prevented London and Paris from supporting Finland in her war with Moscow as had been planned? It had been planned, and then nothing came of it. At that moment, hardly noticed, the fate of the world was decided. France, England against Stalin, that would have brought Hitler, who even then knew that he would have to break with Russia, it would have brought Hitler to the side of Britain. Under Hitler's leadership, the continent could have emerged from the struggle united. Why did God not want this? Why did he let it come to this, that now the West is tearing itself to pieces? For a long time we could see no sense in it, but today it is clear that Hitler, as world conqueror, would subjugate everything, and us as well. He is therefore only to be tolerated if he barely survives. That hour too was God's hour. The Lord decided to leave us unhurt. God be praised. We must finish. Our beloved congregation is awaiting us. It is our wish to urge forward the canonization of Pope Innocent XI. Under his leadership in the 17th century, Christendom formed an alliance to make a stand against the Turks. God grant that this new communistic aggression from the East will similarly founder in its turn, because Europe has recognized in time that in the presence of this threat, she must bury her internal squabbles and pray, beloved in the Lord, for the Jews, of whom many will soon be standing before the face of God. Impressive costume change, which serves to remind me that, as you pointed out, it didn't end there. After the war, the Vatican was accused of helping many Nazi criminals to escape. What did you say his name was? Oh, yes. Bishop Alois Hudal, priest confessor to the German Catholic community in Rome. Amongst others, he gave significant aid to that terrible man, Franz Stangl, who had been the commandant of the largest of the Nazi extermination camps, Treblinka, in Poland, where he was responsible for the killing of some 900,000 souls. Must make him one of the largest mass murderers in world history. It is possible that Bishop Hudal didn't know who Stangl really was. But the good bishop did give him sanctuary in his quarters in Rome, did give him money, and finally even gave him a forged Red Cross passport, with the help of which Stangl escaped and ended up in Brazil, where he lived quietly for many years in Sao Paulo, until he was found there by the investigations of Simon Wiesenthal and deported back to Germany to stand trial. Thank you, Stephen, for researching that interesting book, Into That Darkness, by Gita Sereny. She details in great length her interview with Stangl while he was in prison, from which we extracted this next piece. Well, Stephen, do I look the image of evil? You ask if there was anything I especially enjoyed beyond my specific assignment as Commandant of Treblinka. Yeah, I enjoyed human relations. No, we did have relations with the work Jews, quite friendly relations in fact. The one I talked to most was Blau, him and his wife. I had known him before the war in Austria, where he was a horse trader or cattle or something. When I saw him arriving in Treblinka, I threw my arms around his shoulder and told him, I'm going to appoint you my chief capo, my overseer of the work Jews. You help me now and I'll see that you survive this thing. And after the war, I'll get you a farm in Poland or something. Of course, they hated him. He collaborated, so naturally they hated and feared him. He behaved as if he was trying to outdo the Ukrainians, swinging his whip and shouting. I guess he did it to survive. Who am I to accuse him or blame him? Finally, he asked to be transferred on medical grounds, heart or something. He knew I would help him if I could, so I sent him and his wife to cook for the Jews in the lower camp. The wife was a good cook. One day, he came to my office mid-morning, and standing to attention, he asked for permission to speak. I said, yes, Blau, what is it? He told me that his 85-year-old father had arrived on that morning's transport. Could I do anything to help? I said, well, Blau, you must realize, a man of 85. He quickly said, yeah, he understood. But could he have permission to take his father to the Lazarette and not to the gas chambers? A Lazarette was a roofless shell of a building with a red cross painted on the front wall, ostensibly to look like a clinic. It was, in reality, just another place for killing. Behind the facade, there was a low earth wall in front of a pit. After being ordered to undress, the old and the sick would be made to stand on the wall and would be shot in the back of the neck to fall into the permanently burning pit. Blau asked to take his father there, and first to the kitchens to give him a meal. I said, well, Blau, you must do whatever you think best. Officially, I know nothing, but unofficially, you can tell the guard I said it was all right. In the afternoon, he came back to my office again, and again, standing to attention with tears in his eyes, he said, Herr Hauptsturmführer, I want to thank you. I took my father to the kitchens, and I gave him a meal, and I have just taken him to the Lazarette. It's all over. Thank you. Thank you very much. I said, well, Blau, there's no need to thank me. None whatever. But if you want to thank me, you may. After the uprising in the camp, Blau and his wife were among the 100 or so left over to be evacuated to Sobibor. I heard those 100 were all to be shot next day, so I warned Blau. I just asked if he had any poison. He understood. They died later that day. Better than being shot, yeah? Well, Stephen, while we're in the man's inhumanity to man mode, perhaps we should say something about the resistance to the war from within Germany itself, even though there was little enough of it. You did some wonderful research on that beautiful teenage student in Munich University, Sophie Scholl. Pope Pius may not have been prepared to speak out against Hitler and his atrocities, but Sophie Scholl, her brother Hans, and their professor Christoph Probst did. They wrote and mailed out leaflets denouncing Hitler, the Third Reich, till a janitor who had witnessed them distributing leaflets around the halls of the university reported them to the Gestapo. They were arrested, interrogated, found guilty of treason, and beheaded at a Nazi guillotine. The student resistance movement was named the White Rose, perhaps as a symbol of purity and innocence in the face of evil. The first of their leaflets ended with a quotation from a century earlier, from Goethe's play, The Awakening of Epimenides.
A play that takes place some 2,000 years ago, where the Greek gods of faith, hope, and charity argue for European peace, and finally the spirit of hope has this to say.
Though he who has rashly risen from the abyss with an iron fist and devious malignant cunning may conquer half the world, yet to the abyss must he return. A great and terrible fear shall seize him. In vain he will resist, and all who stand with him must perish in his fall. Now, men of truth and valor are gathering in the night. Quietly they watch and wait, and the glorious word of liberty they whisper there and murmur, till once again, in newly reawakened, unchained free expression on the threshold of the sanctuary of our temple, we shall once more lift up our voice and raise the powerful cry of freedom! Freedom! Perhaps we should change continents and become a little more up to date. Let's go to Central America and the atrocities committed in Guatemala not too many years ago. That was the topic of that interesting play you found for me called Sanctuary by David Williamson.
The play includes an account from an English journalist and his experiences with jungle warfare.
I was by now a full member of the army tribe. The colonel began to take me out on military patrols. I even wrote a piece about the experience. Of course, I didn't write everything. I didn't write that they gave me a gun and even allowed me to fire it. Of course, I didn't actually hit anything, but all my warrior fantasies were let loose. There I was, stalking through the jungle, fighting the bastards who were trying to turn Guatemala into another Cambodia. Truth was, it wasn't really very dangerous because there weren't very many freedom-fighting insurgents out there. But it was terrific fun. The hunting pack, the male bonding, the sheer exhilaration of it took me by surprise. The men slapped me on the back, drank toast to me, and called me un macho, a real man. I was tough, fearless, and a great, great friend of Guatemala. By now, everything I wrote was pro-government, and my editor back home was very pleased. And I was very pleased with myself. I wasn't some liberal, cowardly, left-wing excuse for a reporter propping up the hotel bar like the rest of them. I was a latter-day Hemingway, out there on the front line. Then, one night, the colonel and I got very drunk. And putting his arm around my shoulder, he told me, "Of course, you're not seeing the real war." "No," I said. "Then show it to me." "Impossible. It can never be written about." I swore to him that if he showed me the real war, I would never, ever write about it. He cut his arm, and then mine. And as the blood flowed, I swore an oath. They took me out on the real war next morning. Of course, I knew what he was talking about. And the appalling thing is that I got a prickly, almost sexual surge of excitement just thinking about it. I didn't want to kill. I just wanted to see it done. I wanted to see people die. After all, it's only a couple of centuries since public hangings used to draw crowds of hundreds of people. It's only 2 millennia since people flocked by the thousands to the Colosseum in Rome. Killed Roman drama, stone dead. People preferred to watch men kill each other. Do you think that just because our universities teach phony courses in human perfectibility, that we're any different at the core? I was curious. How do people cope with imminent death? How would I cope? I wasn't sadistic, just insatiably curious. We were up before dawn the next day, and they rounded up a dozen teachers, school teachers. Security had photographed them speaking at a rally to insist that the government curb the death squads. It was very quick, very simple. Bash on the door, break it down if there's no answer, drag them off in front of their families screaming in terror, throw them handcuffed into the back of a big military truck. 9 men, 3 women. Was it exciting? No. It was ugly. I looked at the teachers. They were numb with terror. They knew what was going to happen to them. Just after dawn, we stopped at a clearing in the jungle, a long way out of town. No one seemed in a hurry. My comrades were jocular, cheerful. The colonel came over to me with a smile on his face and told me that 6 was nothing compared to what he was going to offer me now. He handed me a revolver and told me I could have my pick. He said to be sure to make them beg for at least 5 minutes in order to get the full charge. He said there was nothing like the euphoria, absolute power over life and death. They dragged a woman up to me. She was begging for her life already. I looked in her eyes, dropped the gun, ran to the edge of the clearing and was violently ill. My buddies laughed loudly. I didn't watch the killing, but I heard it all. The begging, the taunting, the vile abuse, and the final shot. The colonel came over to me and told me that there was one left. It had been decided that unless I killed, I myself would be killed. They were not going to risk the story ever being published. He put the gun back in my hand and led me back across the clearing. It was another woman. I started shaking with fear, dropped the gun to the ground, and said, "Kill me!" The colonel raised his pistol to my head and pulled the trigger. The chamber was empty. They roared with laughter. Big joke. The next chamber did have a bullet, and the woman was killed before their laughter even died. That was the test. I couldn't kill for pleasure. I couldn't even kill to save my own life. I took the first plane out of Guatemala the next day. I never wrote about war ever again. Well, Stephen, I think it's time wind things up now and end this off with something a little more amusing. And that short sketch you found for me called A Singular Kind of Guy by David Ives. This man is out on the make on a Saturday night, looking for a good time. He spots an attractive girl sitting at a bar and decides to make an approach.
He's got sort of a confession. There's something about himself that he hasn't told anyone.
I know what you're thinking. You're standing there, looking at me, saying to yourself, perfectly average kind of guy, perfectly normal human being, nothing out of the ordinary. Well, that's what I thought too for lots of years. And then, one day, I had I don't know what you'd call it really, a sort of a mystical experience. I was walking past this office supply shop, just a crummy little place really, but I stopped and I turned and I looked, and in the window I saw an Underwood Model 250 portable electric typewriter. You familiar with that particular model? The old Underwood 250? Well, let me tell you, it's sublime. The lines, the shape, the slant of the keyboard, it's all there. A thing of real beauty. Well, anyway, I'm standing there looking at this thing in the window, and it's like I recognize it from someplace. It's like I'm looking at family somehow, like I'm seeing some long-lost older brother for the very first time. And what I realized was, that's me, right there. That thing in the window, that's what I feel like on the inside. Same lines, same shape, same aesthetic. What I realized was, I am a typewriter. No, really, a typewriter. All those years I thought I was a perfectly normal human being, when really on the inside I was an Underwood Model 250 with automatic correctability. You know what? I can't even type. Well, needless to say, this revelation came as something of a shock. But all of a sudden it was clear to me how come I always got off on big words. Big words are what a typewriter is all about. Like subcutaneous and phenomenological. Problem is, it's a pretty lonely thing being a typewriter in a world of human beings. And now, here I am being replaced every day by computers and word processors. Only last week I heard some guy say that typewriters now are almost totally obsolete. Here I finally figure out what I really am, and then Suddenly I'm half an antique already. Plus there's my love life, which is problematical to say the least. The difficulties involved in a typewriter finding a suitable partner can be pretty prodigious, as you can imagine. But at least now I know how come I've always loved not just sex. Sex is anywhere. No. Touch. Touching and being touched. Being touched is part of the nature and purpose of typewriters. It's how we express ourselves and the human person along with us. Hands on the keyboard and the right touch. Fire away! Women's hands. They're practically the first thing I notice. Nice set of shapely fingers, good manicure, soft skin. You got a pretty nice pair of hands yourself there. That's what I noticed. That's how come I stepped over here to talk to you. I know this all sounds kind of loony, but you know, I never told anybody all this before. It's just that somehow it seems like I can trust you. I'm sorry. I don't understand. You're not really a girl? Sure you're a guy. You're a beautiful broad. You're what? You're actually a sheet of paper. 10-pound bond. Ivory tinted. Pure cotton fiber. Glad to meet you.